There's no coach in the country entering this year whose seat is hotter than one Jimbo Fisher's at Texas A&M. If he has another subpar year, especially similar to what he did last year, going 5-7, oh God, I think he's going to be fired. I don't think he's safe. I don't think the money's going to save him. I don't think recruiting's going to save him. I think if he has another subpar season, he will be fired. And the ironic part is, we're bringing this discussion up of Jimbo's future and his seat being excruciatingly hot. The same week, he had a mega recruiting win in getting 5-star wide receiver Cameron Coleman to commit to the Aggies in next year's class. But here's why that commitment doesn't change his future in terms of Jimbo's and doesn't up his security whatsoever. Jimbo's not on the hot seat because of his inability to recruit. It's not like he gets zero talent to Texas A&M and he's coaching a bunch of scrubs. Recruiting is actually the one thing he does really well, is able to get talented guys to College Station. His problem is he can't develop them and or win with them. And so if you're an Aggie fan, if you're just a college football fan in general, this is even just bigger than Jimbo Fisher here, but we're using him as the latest example. If you're a college football fan and your coach can recruit and you can get talent on your team, but the coach you have doesn't know how to develop that talent, doesn't know how to win with that talent, what is the point of having all those talented guys there if you don't know what to do with them? Which is why you should never keep a coach just because they recruit well. If they can recruit well but can't coach, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and that's exactly the issue with Jimbo Fisher and exactly the reason why, if he has another bad year, I don't care what the recruiting ranking is for A&M going into this year. He should be fired. Because if you're getting that much talent in, you should be doing a whole lot better than 5-7. And unfortunately, with all the talent he's had, that's been kind of the norm. That's been the norm. And that's why I think if we're talking about another down year, another underperforming year from the Aggies where they're nowhere close to even competing for the SEC West, let alone competing for a college football playoff spot, Jimbo's got to go. Jimbo has got to go. And I don't think anything is going to save him. Money, look, it's going to be a massive buyout. From the figures I could find and see, it's going to be roughly about $77 million to buy him out after this season. Heavy number. That is a massive number. But oil money runs deep. And those fans are passionate. That won't be a deterrent. That won't be a blockade to where he's come back in 2024 because they can't afford to buy him out of his contract. They'll find a way to get the money, scrounged up. That's not a problem. The $77 million buyout, roughly, is not going to be the reason why Jimbo has his job saved if it's another bad season. And the recruiting rankings and getting another high class is also not going to be the reason that's going to save his job either. Again, recruiting has not been an issue for Jimbo. Let's really fast here go through the last five recruiting cycles he's had and where A&M ranks in the country. This is according to 24/7 Sports. 2019, the Aggies had the 4th ranked class, not in the SEC, in the country. 4th ranked recruiting class in the country in 2019. 6th in 2020. 8th in 2021. 1st, number 1 in 2022. That, if you remember, and you want to go back a quick second here, that is the reason why Nick Saban wanted that entire big-time rant talking about A&M buying players, and we got that into whole controversy about, honestly, this time last year. But that, the Aggies finishing 1st, is partly what sparked Saban to go on his rant about A&M buying players and just dishing out the bag to get any and every talented player to go to College Station. 1st last year, and this past year, 15th. So outside of this year, they've had a top 10 recruiting class each and every season Jimbo's been there, and they also finished number 1. There is no shortage of talent on this A&M team. But here's the problem. Recruiting rankings are high. They look good. Let's go to win total. What has Jimbo Fisher done with those talented players? 2019, The Aggies went 8-5. 2020, COVID year, 9-1. Personally, I'm going to inject a little opinion here. I think it was a little fraudulent, 9-1. I don't think they were as really good as their record said. Their schedule really was not that challenging. But they played the games and the teams on their schedule. They won 9-1. Okay. How do you follow up that 9-1 season and having momentum build? By going 8-4 in 2021 and 5-7 in 2022. Things don't add up there, right? We're talking about top 10 recruiting classes each and every year, and then we're talking about win totals that don't even crack 10 wins. 5-7, 8-4. I'm sorry, that is not why A&M gave Jimbo Fisher to start $75 million, and then gave him another big time deal on top of that a few years later to make sure he doesn't go to LSU. They paid him that big time money to win national titles. Hell, at the introductory press conference, they had a national championship trophy already created. The only thing that was missing was the year. So they expected a lot of wins, and they expected to bare minimum be in the championship race and eventually win one. But they've been nowhere close for basically the majority of Jimbo Fisher's time at College Station. And so we're talking about recruiting rankings. We're talking about, wins on the recruiting trail. Even though this week a big-time, highly recruited 5-star wide receiver chose to go to A&M, that's not a reason to keep Jimbo Fisher. That's not a reason to even lessen the heat on his seat even a degree or two. Because recruiting has never been the issue with Jimbo. It's always been results. It's always been talent development. And he has struggled mightily in that area this tenure with the Aggies. So I don't really care what recruiting rankings say. I don't really care what his buyout is. There's another 6-6, 7-5. I would even say 8-4 year. Because let's be real, the SEC going into this year, I don't think is that tough and that grueling. You're talking about an 8-4 season? I don't see how you bring him back. You got to fire Jimbo.